We can all agree that bodybuilding has generally trended toward leaner physiques over time. Nowadays, if you want any chance of being competitive on stage, you essentially need to lose every bit of fat possible without dropping dead in the process. Getting so shredded is even harder for naturals because they don't have the chemical assistance to keep their hormone profiles consistent throughout the process. But that doesn't matter to the judges. You must compete at 5% body fat with striated glutes and vascular abs, no matter how much muscle you lose in the process or how badly you affect your health or well-being. This is what it means to be a bodybuilder. But we find something very interesting when we look at history, because during the Bronze Era, the late 1800s and early 1900s, we have some really lean bodybuilders. We're talking sub 10% body fat, grainy, dry, vascular physiques. They weren't quite as lean as we see today, but damn, they weren't far either. However, during the 40s and 50s, what we call the Silver Era, something crazy happened. If we made a chart tracking the evolution of bodybuilder conditioning over time, it would probably look something like this. The trend was not always to get leaner. In fact, there was a time when competitive bodybuilders were getting fluffier. If you look at some early Mr. America shows, you'll find a standard which is completely unique in the history of bodybuilding. Impressive, large, powerful, and healthy looking physiques. They were so big that even with their suits on, they looked like absolute units. These were not sleeper physiques where you needed the shirts to come off to tell they were bodybuilders. They weren't starving or dehydrating themselves. They competed at the body weight of a large adult man, 90 to 100 kilos, over 200 pounds. This was the judging criteria at the 1941 Mr. America, which was won by John Grimek. There were 10 judges who could each award a maximum of 15 points spread across the following categories: 5 points for muscular development, 5 points for muscular proportions, 3 points for posing, and 2 points for general appearance. So a perfect score from all the judges would have been 150 points. Notice anything missing? Body fat or conditioning was literally not even a part of the judging criteria. They did not examine your butthole for striations. And that's how John Grimek, a guy who didn't even have visible abs, got a nearly perfect score of 146.5 points to win the show and be crowned the best physique in the country. He weighed 221 pounds at that show, or 100 kilos, which is likely the heaviest he ever got in his career. The guy was absolutely huge. Another great example is from the 1949 Mr. New York competition at Carnegie Hall. Apart from this being one of the coolest bodybuilding photos of all time, we actually get a great insight into what the judges were looking for back then. In the middle, we have Melvin Wells, who we can all agree by modern standards would be laughed off stage for being fat. He has the kind of conditioning you would expect to see in a fluffy off-season bodybuilder who hasn't even started his prep yet. Meanwhile, on the right, we have Erwin Korzewski, looking lean and mean. Clearly single-digit body fat levels. Maybe not quite to the level of dryness which is expected today, but for the time this is really impressive. His 8-pack is popping with those deep cuts. Despite the massive difference in conditioning, Melvin Wells with his 15% body fat actually won this show, something which would be unthinkable with modern judging standards. And this wasn't a fluke either. Erwin competed a lot throughout the 1950s, and despite having one of the leanest and most modern looking physiques of his era, he never won a major national competition. Was he robbed each time? I don't think so. Don't get me wrong, he was a great bodybuilder, but clearly the judges were looking for something else, and that's what makes this era so special. I think this is where competitive natural bodybuilding peaked, with judging standards which pushed for massive yet healthy physiques and without any steroids to muddy the waters. It seems difficult to imagine that the competitive scene would ever go back to this standard. But what's really sad is that with social media, now even recreational lifters are being pushed to follow unhealthy role models. The whole thing is quite frankly just a gross bastard bastardization of what used to be a beautiful sport. Anyway, it's not like there's any fame or any money to be made in competitive natural bodybuilding, and that will never change since the steroid genie won't ever go back in the bottle. Natural bodybuilding will never be mainstream again, and it will forever exist in the shadow of enhanced bodybuilding. But hey, at least what that means is there really isn't any incentive for us natural lifters to conform to anyone else's ideas. Screw the modern judging standards. Screw the social media pressures. We can make our own standards, whether it's inspired by the old school greats or simply just following whatever makes us happy and feel our best. True natural bodybuilding is a beautiful, healthy endeavor. Don't let anyone take that away from you.